What's up guys, welcome to Mount MoGraph. As usual, my name is Matt, and in today's video we're going to be doing Summit 17 Space Camp, or Low Poly Space Camp I guess we can call it. This was all done inside Cinema 4D. It was really quick. I think this one took me maybe 15 minutes, but the cool thing is I'm going to be showing you all about the lighting for this scene, which might help you guys out a little bit. I did get a couple messages about just like funny light stuff, and this is not really my real video for the week. I'm gonna be putting up yeah, this turned out pretty cool. I'm gonna be putting up what's it called, driving a low poly boat through low poly water, and have the water like deform around it, and also a car. So I guess I'll be doing like vehicle videos this weekend, so I'll probably be putting those up tomorrow. But I wanted to show you guys today how to make that what I think is a kind of cool looking picture, and it came out really nice for that much time. So anyway, let's jump into it. Open up Cinema 4D and press F2 to go into your top view. Kind of hard to see what's going on. I should actually probably turn on my grid for this one, just for so I can see what I'm drawing on. Let's go up into our spline tools and let's use our linear, and we're going to be making a little island. So I'm just gonna click and hopefully not draw a dog's face this time. I realized someone told me like, hey, you're drawing dog faces all over your videos. I didn't realize the last spline I drew was a dog face. Well, this one turned out to be a fish. I guess we'll go with it, whatever. That's cool. I seriously didn't mean to do that. So anyway, let's go back into our perspective view. Select your spline and go up into your extrude objects, and just holding alt, you can select your extrude, and that'll immediately make whatever object was highlighted in your object manager a child of whatever you held alt when you selected it, if that made sense. I'm trying. So anyway, let's go into our extrude properties, and we're going to change our height segment. So that's going to be our Y property. Let's turn it up to 10, and we'll have that. I'm also going to delete my Phong tag since we're making low poly artwork today. Okay, so now let's take our extrude object, and we're going to go and grab a MoGraph cloner. So holding Alt, just let go and click cloner, and it'll drop our extrude into our cloner. That'll definitely make your workflow a little bit quicker. Let's keep our mode to linear. We're going to change our Y property down here to a minus like 5, or actually let's turn it a little bit more. So I'm going to go minus 2.5. So you can kind of tell it's going to be stacked, and what we're also going to do is modify our X property here, 110, and our Z property also to 110. So as you can see, it does this. So that means like every count of our cloner is going to be changed by these properties here. So that's an easy way to kind of get this layered look, obviously. And I think it looks all right. So I'm gonna do that, and that should be fine. Actually, maybe I'll turn this to minus 3.5 and get a little bit more of an edge. All right. So that I'm going to call island. All right, and I guess we should start coloring stuff too right now, and just keep this video nice and easy. So let's go into our properties. Select your new material, and in your color properties, let's go and select a gradient, and double click your gradient, and go and set this to 2D vertical. And we're going to change our bottom looking color to, well, this first one is going to be our top green. So I'm going to set this to a light green and a darker green. All right, and then I'm going to drop this. Actually, so select your island and press C to make it editable. And what this will do is separate your objects. So now this extrude 1 should be our top one. Extrude 1 is actually our second one, sorry. And then extrude 2 is our third copy. So that's a quick way to duplicate objects, which we'll use later in this video. So drop your matte 1 onto the top layer. As you can see, it turns green. Holding command, drag out your top color, and let's change this to a darker one. So maybe I'll go to like a darker green, to a kind of brown as we near the Earth, or what would be the Earth since we're going to space camp. That's my punny play on words for today. I hope I didn't say that joke already, because that's pretty lame. So now on this last one, I'm just going to make it brown, transition to brown, and drop that on my third one. Cool. So now I have this island, which I'll do a quick render, and it doesn't look that nice, but it'll slowly start to look better as we go through this project. So now let's create our trees. So go into your primitives and select a pyramid. We are going to press C on our keyboard to make it editable. Scale it down with your T command. Let's now scale it up. Actually, I'm going to use my axis center, which I do in pretty much every video. So you can, if you're new to the channel and you haven't seen that before, just watch any of the other videos. I'll explain how to dock that, but it's something I use a lot and I recommend. All right, so I'm just gonna go and create kind of a skinny tree. This is gonna be a really nice and simple scene. And let's see, I will drag my lighter green. I'm actually going to set my texture here to a Fresnel, and I will set my outside color to, let's see, I want this to be kind of streaky, so I'll do that, and the inner color is going to be that, and I'll do one more. So just double click somewhere in your gradient selection area, and it'll create a new little color tab for you, and I'm gonna just add another one so we get a little bit more depth to the trees. And I'm gonna drag this onto my tree, which I'm gonna call tree top. All right, now let's create a cylinder, and this is gonna be our trunk of our tree. Just drag this up and place it as a child of my tree top. I'm gonna call this trunk. Press C to make it editable. Delete your Phong tag. I'm going to scale my trunk down a little bit more and make it nice and thin, and now scale it up so we just have a little stick. I'm going to copy, I'm actually going to use the same material I used for that bottom layer of our island and just place it as our trunk color. So that is looking pretty phenomenal, and we're all set. We've created a little fish with a floating tree. Well, let's continue because I'm making bad jokes, so you know the video is going to get silly. Let's go into our cloner object. Select your tree top. Holding Alt, select a cloner, and that'll make our tree a child of our cloner. And now select this top island, so it's going to be my extrude 0. I'm not going to bother naming these, and I'm just going to drag this out. Whoopsie. Hold Command and drag out your extrude 0. All right, press C on your keyboard to make this editable. And now select the children and delete them. So we just have one solid object. Darn it, I did the wrong one. So I need this. All right, so this is the one I want. So that was a stupid little step. I made a dumb mistake, but anyway. So you want to have a duplicated layer of your top island, and we are going to grab our cloner, and we're going to select the mode of object, and we're going to drag our extrude 0.1 or whatever it would be as a as the object selection. Let's change our distribution to surface and our up vector to +y. No, which one will it be? You might have to play +z. Still no. It's supposed to be +y. Let's see if I can figure this out. Polygon center, surface, volume. Oh, it's sorry, it's on volume. So set it to volume. And now let's pick a side of the island. I'm going to be using this side, I think, for this video. And what we'll be doing is pretty much, I'm going to turn the count down a little bit. I'm going to be using this cloner to generate copies of our tree. I'm actually also going to, holding Alt, click the little traffic signals next to your extrude 0.1, which is your duplicated island layer. So I'm going to be using this cloner to resize these objects really nice. in quickly and also rotate them a little bit. So with your cloner selected, go into your MoGraph module effector and grab a random effector. So now our random effector, the preset parameters are going to be set to the position of 0, 0, or to 50, 50, 50, and we want those to be set to 0, 0, 0. Actually, I could have just unclicked my position properties. I'm going to turn my rotation on, and I'm going to change my pitch a little bit, maybe to 4. My banking, I'm going to also change a little bit, maybe to 5. And my heading, I'll change to like 36, and as you can see, it looks pretty. You have some random turns to everything. On my scale properties, I'm going to change it to a uniform scale, and I'm going to turn this down to negative 2.8, I guess, is what we'll go with. So now I'm going to go back into my cloner object, go to my object tab. I'm going to change my seed count, and this is a good way just to, I'll be moving these trees in just a second a little bit more, but it's a good way to kind of randomly reposition them if you're not quite happy with where they are, and you just want to see possibilities, which is a good way to see just in terms of landscape design what's working and what's not. So I'm going to just go and select a number I think looks good. These are completely random numbers, the seeds, so you could have something that looks completely different than what I'm getting on my screen, which I think is actually nice. So I'm going to keep with this one, and I'm going to turn my count up to 13. And now I'm going to go and select my cloner and press C on my keyboard. So what this is going to do is, since we made it editable, we're going to have duplicates of all of our cloner objects. Our clones are going to become objects of their own and won't be based off one property anymore. So the benefit of doing this is, now since we have some overlap on the trees, I will be able to just like reposition them with a little more finesse, I guess. So now if there's any overlaps, I'll change them. If I want to move them a little bit, it's much easier than clicking around on the seed and not quite getting what you want. So this is I just do it this way because, like I said, it's an easy way to generate random position and movement and also size without having to like do it by hand. So I'm just going to drag these around the scene a little bit, try to get them separated. I know I'm going to be putting a tent and a fire here, so I'm going to give it a little bit of a hole, and just we'll go from there. So let's see. We'll just keep working at it. One of the cool things about Low Poly that I'm slowly starting to enjoy is that the scenes are very dynamic for such simple shapes. Like you can really kind of take an idea and just like not here, let me see if I can explain it. So what I like is you can't like hide behind all kinds of like textures and layers and maps, you know, like it all comes down to what your design is. Obviously this is a very simple design, which is cool, but you know, like people can kind of appreciate what you were trying to do a little bit more. Yeah, so I don't know if that makes sense to anyone, but I think that's a cool way to approach design, is with this in mind. So I'll do a quick preview, and as you can see, our scene is coming together. Once I said at the beginning, we'll be adding our lights to the scene, and that's what's going to really make this look much more dynamic. So let's add some rocks. We're going to go and grab a platonic object and scale this down. And let's see. So I'm not happy with this shape, and I'm going to change my type under my attribute manager to a, let's go and try Bucky. That looks cool. It's probably never ever used for anything, but why not? We'll use Bucky today. So I'm going to press C to make my platonic editable, and now I'm just going to position this around the scene to what looks good to me. Actually, before I start doing this, I should probably add a material to this. So double click and create a new material. Go into your color properties and select a gradient. And we're going to just do a nice, simple, easy gradient, gray, and maybe to a darker gray or almost a black or something. That looks good. Let's go into our reflection channel and turn that on, and turn your reflection down to 6. Your texture mode will turn on to Fresnel and turn your mix strength to 13. I'm just guessing at these numbers, but this will probably look fine. Let's go on to our, what do we want to turn on here? Our diffusion, and click that. Go into your texture and select a noise. Double click that, and this is going to create our little rock looking texture. Turn your global scale down to 5, which is going to look very small in here, but since our objects are very small, it'll probably look fine. So I'll do a quick preview, and there we go. So we're kind of getting a very geometric shape. Man, I actually don't really like Bucky. I'm not a fan, but at this point of the video, I kind of have to go with it. Actually, here, we'll do one more step just because I really hate what this looks like and I don't want to go back and change it. I'm just going to delete this actually and go and create another platonic object, and I'm going to select the type of dodeca, which looks a little more geometric instead of so roundy. That's not even a word. Anyway, I'll drag my texture that we created for Bucky on here, press C to make it editable, and I will just use this one. I like it already much more. So let's go about and just place this rock around our scene. So I went into my top view by pressing F2, put a rock over here. And this is just a good way to get an idea of your spread of like where your materials and objects are going. I'll put a larger rock back here. It looks like we have some extra space. And I'll scale these down on the Y-axis after we've done this just to make it come together. And now let's put a little cluster of rocks here. So just command to copy it if you're using it. Maybe turn it a little bit. And we'll change these a little bit more in a second. This is just kind of like your base spread of where everything's going to be. Maybe put a rock there, make it smaller. And this is, I mean, you can go crazy and add a ton, but I don't know, like the whole minimal thing is I'm digging. So that's why this scene is kind of simple today. Just drag that, put rock over there. Great. I'm going to go into my right view, and we're now able to see kind of how tall all our rocks are. I just wanted to see real quick, and now go back into your perspective, and we will be positioning these rocks. So I'll move this one up a little bit, make it flatter. Yeah, this just is going to be what you like for your design. This is just what I'm doing for today. There's no right way or wrong way. I think I always say that, but it's pretty true. You can make something totally awesome, totally crappy, whatever you feel like doing. So just position these randomly. Don't worry too much about just like rotation or angle. They're pretty minor parts of the scene that it's just good to have extra always in your scene, just so it makes it look a little bit more dynamic. Let's see, I know I had some rocks hiding around here somewhere. There was one. Maybe make this one flatter. I don't know. Making rocks. I probably could have done the same trick we did with the cloner to create these rocks actually in hindsight, but oh well. I did not think of that. Let's see. No, I got 2 more rocks hiding around here somewhere. Get these real quick. This guy. And all right, that is just going to be fine. All right, our scene is about halfway there. Now let's create our little tent. So how we're going to do this is just go and create a cone. And we're going to drag this primitive out over here. In your cone attributes, we're going to change our segments down to 7. Our height segments to, we'll do 6. And now just press C to make it editable. Turn your size down a lot. And delete your Phong tag on here. I'm going to actually group these objects, all these platonics, and just name these rocks to clean up our object manager. And our cloner, I can minimize this and call this trees. And this is our, actually this random effector we used for our cloner can be deleted, as well as our object we used for our cloner. So I'll delete those since we only used those to generate our trees in the beginning. So I'm going to select my cone, press C if you didn't to make it editable. Use your polygon selection to delete, to select these two little things for an opening, and press delete. We're going to go into our right view, and I want to delete the bottom of my cone. Actually, you know what, it doesn't matter. You can leave it just like that. Now I want to add some thickness, I think, to my tent, because if I was to do a quick preview, it is paper thin. It's just polygon. So an easy way to do this is go into your simulate, go into your cloth, and grab a cloth surface. Drop your cone into your cloth surface. Nothing happens. But if you go into your attributes and change your thickness up, I'm going to change it to 2. And that, as you can see, added this texture to it, or this thickness to it, I guess you'd say. So that looks pretty good. I'm going to call this tent. And also this added more polygons for us if we wanted to deform it further, but I do not right now. So let's just create another material. And I'm going to make this a red or orange for our tent. Pretty generic. Right here, make this orange. So yeah, I hope you guys are liking this video so far. Like I said, I'll have a better video up tomorrow. This one is just randomly for today. I don't know why. I just felt like making something. Oh, that's annoying. Okay. Sorry, I couldn't figure out why I wasn't connected to my object. Drag this over here. And yeah, I'm just going to tuck that under the ground instead of cutting it. That's looking pretty good. Let's add the little sticks at the top of our TB. So what I'm going to do is create a cylinder, scale this down a lot, and make it editable. Select it, and now turn your height way up so you have a nice stick, I guess. Maybe scale it down a little bit more so it's thin. With your cylinder selected, go into your MoGraph module and grab a cloner. This is going to drop our cylinder into our cloner. Set the mode to radial. Set your plane to XZ. Turn your radius down to 0. Go into your transform properties and turn your pitch to 20 something, whatever looks good. And now I will be able to put this inside of my tent. I'll make it a child of my cone, do a PSR update, and ooh, heck. Okay. Why did it all of a sudden get fat? What the hell? Oh, I see. That was just another stupid thing I did. Just drag this up. That looks fine. Once again, you can spend way more time on this and create a much better effect. I just want to show you guys that. How many sides does this have? I'm fine with it. So I'm going to use the same color I used for my tent sticks for the ground, that brown color, and put those together. Okay, we now have 2 more elements to make real quick. I'm just going to make a little box next to the tent just to kind of add something more to the scene, not for any specific reason. So press C to make it editable, delete your Phong tag. I'm going to, for this box, I'll make it a kind of goldish yellow. And also, when you're making these materials, you don't have to spend crazy amounts of time with it, because I think the lights you put in a scene like affect it more, you know? Like I kind of just guess on stuff and just do whatever, you know, and then just adjust my lights accordingly to get something I like. So this is going to be just a random box over here. I'm actually going to add a lid to it real quick. So holding command, I'm going to drag this out and scale it down, lift it up, create a really crappy top. And this is not going to be anything special or amazing. I'm just doing this for just extra content, like I said. And that should do it. So that's fine. I'm going to put those in a null together and just call this box. So now I'm going to go and set this box next to our tent, wherever it is. Move it over here. There we go. Maybe even make it smaller. Man, this box does not look too good, I'll tell you that much. It's the worst box I've ever made. Hope everyone had a good New Year too, by the way. A Happy New Year. And maybe I'll duplicate this box and scale it up. Make it look like a little campsite or something, since people bring boxes with them when they go camping. Or he's selling stuff. Maybe he's like, hey man, I got all kinds of stuff. You want some? So that looks fine. Now let's create a little fire pit. I'm going to go and create a platonic object and scale it down a lot. That's good. I'm not even going to change it any more than that. Just scale it down significantly. Holding Alt on your keyboard, go into your MoGraph and grab a cloner. We're going to, let's see, where is this guy? So our cloner is, the object mode is going to be set to radial. We're going to set our plane to XZ and turn our radius down. Now I'm going to go position this on the top of our scene right here, wherever a fire pit would go. That looks good. You can resize your radius if you want it to be a little bit smaller, which I will. And I'm just going to turn my segments up to 15. Yours might be different depending on your size. But as you can see, this is a quick way to make a decent looking little fire pit. I mean, it's such a minor part of the scene, it doesn't matter. And then I'm going to drag our rock texture onto our cloner. Call this fire rocks. And now we're going to do one more thing. Duplicate your fire rocks. And I'm going to call this logs. And we are going to delete our platonic in our logs and grab what should I grab? We'll grab our tree. So go into your trees and grab your trunk and drop it into your logs here. And then I will turn my radius down for my logs, my countdown for my logs, put it down a little bit, and now we'll go into our transform properties and change our pitch. That's a little much. Perfect. So I turned my pitch to 17. They're sticking out a little bit, so I can just scale that down. I actually don't think it matters that it was sticking out, but as you can see, this is a quick way to create a little stuff in a scene. The cloner objects are probably my most used thing. All right, so our scene is now together. And we're going to now be adding the lights to really make this scene come together, and it's going to take no time at all. So first, let's start by putting all of this in a null. So select them all and do Alt-G on your keyboard to make a null, and I'm just going to call this Space Camp and resize my little box here. And now let's go into our environment objects and grab a physical sky and go into your physical sky properties, go into time and location, and I will set this to now. So basically, if it's pretty smart about knowing where you are. So if you're like, if it's in the middle of the day, this color would be different. But right now it's nighttime here, or getting to be. So it's going to be later in the day, and you can adjust it later, where you'd have more stars and stuff. But this is a good way to create a little background, and I think that looks fine. So I'm going to call this space. And now let's add the lights to our scene and the firelight. So what we're going to do is go up and just create a basic light, and we're going to lift this into the air. I would put it kind of like, let's imagine that we want shadows coming towards our fire. We'll just pretend like the moon or something is over on this side. So on your light properties, let's go and change our type to an area light. And an area light simulates light coming through an object or from an object. So like light from outside a window, for example, or something like that. So now let's turn our shadow on to area. And let's just leave it as a white color and maybe turn your intensity down to 25. And we'll see what's coming together. So this is just a filler light basically. The light we put up here is our fill. So why don't we just even name that fill? And not fill, P-H-I-L, fill as in F-I-L-L. So now let's create another light for our scene. And these are going to be like our highlights from our fire. So I'm going to drag something over here, maybe into the front. And I'm going to call this spec 1 for specular. Go into your properties and turn off your diffuse. The diffuse property, I'll actually show you. So as you can see now, our scene is lit. It's going to look a lot better than this in a second. This looks pretty crappy, but it's lit by this light. So if we turn off diffuse, it's only going to add its highlights to our objects. So what I'm going to do is create a kind of spacey looking glow. So select light blue color and turn my intensity down maybe to 54. And this kind of creates just a nice ambient glow around your scene. So grab your spec and holding command, just drag out a copy and duplicate it. And I'm going to add another kind of specular glow. Just position it slightly different. And I'm going to call this spec 2 for specular highlights 2. And I'm going to select a kind of orangey beige color, I guess, like that. And maybe turn my intensity down to 38, should be fine. And there we go. So once again, this isn't our finished scene or anything. We've still got a light to add, but this is how you just create some extra tones to your scene and colors. And this is why I said the base materials don't matter that much, because they've already changed, like just with the lights we've added. So now what we're going to do is create one more light, and I'm going to call this fire. So let's move our firelight into our fire pit. So I'm going to actually zoom in on this. So I would try to get your light right into the middle of your logs. And that is looking perfect. So now what we're going to do is go into your type, or not your type, sorry, turn on visible light, and we're going to set this to volumetric. And we're going to go onto our details tab here and turn our fall off on to inverse square, physically accurate. If you don't have R15, select inverse square clamped. So immediately our scene lights up, and if I was to do a quick preview, it's going to look super blown out and really, really awful. So what I'm going to want to do is, with your fire selected, press T to bring up your scale properties and scale this down. So this is what the fall off option we just turned on is, and this is the fall off of the light. So I'm going to turn this on so it's very, very small. So it's like barely even getting to the tent. And I'm going to go into my fire properties, my general tab, and turn my color to a bright red. And I'm going to turn my intensity down to maybe like 4. So let's see what has happened to our scene. I'll do a quick preview. It's not looking as good as I'd hoped. Let's see. You might have to turn your okay, it's starting to look better. We have some stuff to change still. Okay, so this is going to take a little bit of playing around, but we're starting to get a glow here. Let's actually go into our fill light and maybe just turn the color up a little bit. Might have kept it too dark, so I turned mine up to 40. Maybe even a little bit more. I'm gonna probably go to 52 just to get some of our tones back in the scene. All right, now I'm gonna go into my firelight. This might take a second to actually figure out something. A lot of this is, now that we're actually messing with the lights, those are a lot more important. So we'll see what we can get. I might have to turn my fall off up a little bit. All right, it's kind of starting to make itself make sense. I just switched it to inverse volumetric to see if that works better, which it does not. So I do want volumetric, or do I want visible? It's going to be one of these settings is really going to make it work for us. All right, I'm going to keep it on volumetric, go into my details, and let's see. Maybe we'll have to turn it up a bit more. All right. Sorry about this, guys. I didn't like write this down or something. It's changes every time you play around with this. All right, this glow is starting to look better. I'm gonna put it back down into my fire. I'm gonna duplicate it and duplicate it again. And on that second duplication, I'm gonna just change the color tones, maybe to a red, and scale down my light. And let's see if this looks any better. So I'll do Command R. Nice. So that was the settings. Those definitely are going to take a little bit for you guys to play around with and figure out. But it's always worth it. You know, like spending time with it, make it the project feel like your own. And hopefully you can get a kind of cool looking effect, which I think this looks really nice. I'm going to actually use my red one and turn that up more than my other ones. So now I kind of have this little burn at the top. So the scene is still actually not done. I'm going to show you a couple settings you're going to want to turn on to make this scene look even better. So go up into your settings properties or your render settings. Just click that. I always have mine set to ambient occlusion on. If you don't have that, your project will look much flatter. And what this will do is add very subtle extra shadows to stuff. So that looks pretty bad. And if I add ambient occlusion to my project, it's going to look a little darker. You're going to have like shadows from objects. So I always recommend turning that on for pretty much everything. Sometimes you'll have like ray length problems, which you can tackle just by turning down your maximum ray length. So now let's go and I'm going to turn on my physical camera, which you guys might not have if you don't have R15. And just to start smoothing stuff out. And then I'm going to go into my effects and turn on global illumination, which is great. So I'm just going to keep this at its standard and let's see how our scene looks. So I didn't change anything with our global illumination setting. I'm just going to do Command R with the default, and it's going to take a second and it's going to go through and do a couple passes over our image and the light sources in the image to calculate and figure out what it wants to do. So obviously this is not perfect, but I think it looks pretty good. You know, you can get a nice effect. You can definitely mess around with your lights way more than what we did just for this video, just to keep it nice and short. Like you can turn your fill light on, turn it off, turn it down, change the color of your fill light. Like I'll just show you. So I'll turn my fill light down a lot, maybe even to like 20, and global illumination is going to take this light source of our fire and make that be cast more around our scene, and kind of give it the tones. We can turn up our specular. We can mess around with a lot of stuff. So actually, I feel like my fill light is not doing as much as I'd hoped. I'm going to turn this down, turn that down, maybe turn my fire sources down. Now that we have global illumination on, this fall off is really going to come into play of our lights. So now I've made my whole firelight much smaller, and I've also turned down all the different lights for our scene. And as you can see, you get a totally different feel. Unfortunately, our lights are super stupid. They're just little, and you might have to turn them up. But I guess as you can see, almost on the trees, as my fall off goes up, the light gets cast in the scene more when you have global illumination on. So anyway, I'm going to just, whatever this ends up being is what it is. But I hope you guys learned something in this project. I know it wasn't as exciting as maybe you were hoping it to be. But basically, to sum it up, make sure you use your cloner. That is really helpful for building stuff quick. Low poly is fun. You can have a lot of great times with it. And yeah, just spend some time with the lights in your scene more than you do on your materials. And that's really key. So yeah, that looks bad. I turned it up way too much. But it definitely has that kind of like realistic campfire glow to the scene, which is kind of nice. So mess around with that, and I hope you guys create something awesome. And that is about it. So this was Matt from Mount MoGraph, and get your learn on, guys. See ya.